Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Cheney Pope. I am the Communications Manager at the Desmoid Tumor Research Foundation. As you know, July is Sarcoma Awareness Month, and we are closing out this special month in a big way today. We encourage you to visit our website for resources and facts to help you raise funds for desmoid tumor research and amplify messaging about desmoid tumors all year long. Thank you to our event sponsor, SpringWorks Therapeutics, for supporting this live event. And don't forget to connect with us in person in Chicago this year at the DTRF Together We Will weekend from September 12th to the 13th. Visit dtrf.org for all the event details. Now we've arrived at the moment we've been waiting for. I'm excited to introduce you to our special guest, Jason, who will be sharing his desmoid tumor story with us tonight. We're also so thankful that Jason's been a steadfast fundraiser for the past 7 years, and he also joined the DTRF Board of Directors earlier this year. Before we begin, please remember the desmoid tumor patient and caregiver experience is vast and varied. What works for one patient or caregiver may not work for another. When you listen today, maybe the specifics Jason shares are different from your own experience, but we ask you to listen to what resonates with you. Please feel free to share comments and questions in this chat. After our conversation with Jason, we'll highlight a few of your questions. All right, now let's welcome Jason to our conversation tonight. All right, hey, Jason.
Hey, Jamie.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. We're so excited just to have a casual conversation about some really important things, especially your desmoid tumor diagnosis. So I'm excited to just get started and let's look back at 2017, where that journey began for you. Can you tell us a little bit about your diagnosis?
It all started sitting at my kitchen table with my family and my parents. I now have three little girls. This was, just before our youngest was born. And I remember, talking to my dad and basically saying like, man, I feel like something kind of weird in my stomach. I'm a tall skinny guy, and there was, like a mass or something I could move around. And he was like, yeah, you should probably get that checked out. And it's very casual, very normal. And then the next week I went to see, we were at the final doctor's appointment with my wife. And after him saying, we probably weren't going to have a baby for another week or
Mhm.
so. I said, "Hey, can I show you something?" And so he said, "Well, yeah, sure." And he's like, he poked around. He's like, "You really need to get that looked at pretty quickly, because you could feel it like moving around." And our head started spinning. Like, you could see his fear in his eyes. And he's obviously not a trained, he's an OBGYN, not trained, doctor in this field. So we very, very quickly, I live in St. Louis. I
Mhm.
was going back to a hospital to, get a scan, and within 24 hours, it was identified that I had a very large mass in my abdomen. And I don't know whether it was, the full moon, or the fear of what was happening. But like, my wife's water broke and we went and had a baby.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, the things that were post identifying that we had a tumor, which is like, okay, let's have
Mhm.
a biopsy, like they got put on hold for about 24 hours. Well, like, had the baby, hadn't even told my parents yet what was happening. It
Mhm.
was just such a whirlwind. And left the room and went and got a biopsy. Got wheeled back into the room where my wife and brand new baby were. And we waited then. And what's interesting is like anybody, they tell you not to Google and not to do anything. But I had already started Googling everything, trying to figure out and
Looking
self-diagnose
at-
like what happened. So
Mhm.
that was the beginning. And got the biopsy, which actually identified it as a desmoid tumor.
Mhm.
But like anything, it's like, well, this is preliminary, this is what we think. um And so, I think through my research, I actually found the DTRF website,
Mhm.
which is, I think was, when I started reading about all the things I could have possibly had, I probably, landed on this website, like feeling like, well, this could be what I have, and
Mhm.
this seems to have information that could lead me down a path of, something that other people have,
Mhm.
and that there might be a community that I could lean into.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's a community that you've joined in full force. For anybody that's just joined us, Jason is a member of our DTRF board. He's a desmoid tumor patient, and he's also a very, very faithful fundraiser for the DTRF year after year. And we're going to get into some of those fun highlights of the fundraising, but we're first, learning more about Jason's journey
Yeah.
and where he started at diagnosis. As you can tell, it's a really unique situation. He was about to have his first baby with his wife, and he went over some of those details. So, Jason, just walk us back a little bit too. I know you mentioned some symptoms that you had, but how big was your tumor? And it was located in your stomach, abdomen region, correct?
Yeah, so it's a mesentery desmoid.
Mhm.
It's hard to imagine, but it was the size of a volleyball. Which, how do you hide? I mean, I'm a big person, 6 foot
Mhm.
6, but I'm thin, and
Mhm.
I have no idea how long this thing was in me. Did it come out of nowhere? Had it been growing slowly for a long time? I had like some pains in my stomach as kids and as a young adult, but I have
Mhm.
no idea like when it started. And it was size of a volleyball, wrapped across all my colon and my intestines, and
Mhm.
so that's it was very large, and it was, to your point, it was in my mesentery, which, um some people would argue that's probably some of the most dangerous place
Mhm.
you could have it, and because of, ultimately it could, threaten your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, in that whirlwind of you mentioned just having to press
Mhm.
pause for 24 hours and try to be in the moment with your wife and your new baby. And I know that, you had a biopsy pretty quickly, obviously, from I think it was your father or father-in-law nudging you toward that. Yeah. And so it was just, it was such a whirlwind of time period. But when you look back on that, do you remember kind of the fears that were going through your head when you were newly diagnosed? I know that you found the DTRF through your own
Yeah.
searching, but do you remember anything, or was it just all a blur?
Yeah, yeah, I do. And it's hard to talk about because like this is, anybody who's come to the golf tournament, Swing for the Cure, knows like I can't get through talking about this without crying. And
That's okay though.
um so but yeah, I do. I remember some very, very specific moments. One was during that biopsy procedure. My dad was, there with me, and I just was like, this isn't how it's supposed to go, man. I'm like, I don't want to die. And at that point, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know anything about it. But I definitely remember him looking at me in the eye, and like he was just as scared as I was. So I remember that a lot. And I remember how hard it was, like, on my wife. With the trips back and forth to the hospital, both post, treatment and beginning, as we tried to figure things out while also, like barely sleeping with a brand new baby. So it wasn't just hard on me. It was, I probably the things I remember the most is being really scared, and
Mhm.
then, how much it impacted my support system too.
Yeah. Well, I know I haven't been able to be at Swing for a Cure, and we'll talk more about that wonderful fundraiser in just a little bit. But you got through explaining that beautifully. And as a man, as a father, as a husband, to be able to articulate those moments, and what the toll that it took on you, but not only the people around you, is going to help so many people in listening to this today. Because that flurry of uncertainty is something that at the DTRF we hear about all the time. And it's something that we really want to shine a light on, of what those emotions may feel like for each individual when they're diagnosed. And so it's really important. And I just thank you so much for being willing to talk about it. In that moment though, of like, you found the DTRF, you weren't sure right at that moment that it was a desmoid for sure. What walk me through, was there any time where your physicians were unsure about what it was, or was there
Yeah.
misdiagnosis in that process?
It's I I always come back to how, fortunate I feel. And probably the more I've gotten to know the other people impacted by this disease, I probably feel even more fortunate, for myself, which makes me feel sorry for other people as well too. So, but no, there was never a misdiagnosis. Like, it was diagnosed correctly, like in the initial biopsy. And then I was immediately transferred to, Barnes WashU in St. Louis, where there was experts right there for me in my community, because I live in a major metro area in St. Louis. And I remember the first appointment I set, with Dr. Vantine, which is who's one of the best, and he knows this, and he's a rare tumor doctor. And I remember when we scheduled the meeting, or the first appointment. First of all, it was like you couldn't get into this doctor unless you had some very rare, tumor like
Mhm,
this. Number one, but number two, um, the first question they asked me was like, "Where am I coming from?" And I'm
mhm,
like, I'm 10 minutes away. And what it was like dawned on me that like most people have to drive
mhm,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours to get to a facility like Barnes across the United States, because there's only so many of these doctors that support this disease. So if you don't have, first of all, if you end up at the wrong first hospital, your outcome could be dramatically
mhm,
different. If you don't have the means, both financially and support system to get you to these
mhm,
places, your outcome could be dramatically different. I was just blown away that like there's not that many people in St. Louis that go to see this guy for this disease. Most people are coming from many states around. And then I just started thinking about how much harder it would be if every time I had to go see my doctor, I had to spend a night in a hotel room and drive,
mhm,
4, 6 hours each way to get there. And so, I didn't get misdiagnosed. I got properly diagnosed. I'm super fortunate of it.
mhm,
Um, and, very quickly we confirmed that it was, a mesentery desmoid. And we started planning what's next, right? What do we do to treat this? This was 7 years ago, as you acknowledge,
mhm,
that this happened, probably close to, approaching 8 years
mhm,
here later this year. And we quickly decided that the next step was surgery,
mhm,
and I was going to do it right there, with an oncologist surgeon, but with Dr. Vantine's oversight as a oncologist. And
mhm.
um, as I just rapidly skip forward, if this is the direction the
Yeah,
conversation's going,
please.
you know I I went into surgery, not fully knowing what was in there, because you don't
Mhm,
know, right? When you're such a big mass, it's in your body, you don't know exactly how it's going to go. I go back to how fortunate I am, because when they opened me up, they realized like this thing was everywhere. There were polyps everywhere. There was, tumors everywhere. It was ugly, and it was a mess, and it was wrapped around everything.
mhm,
And I'm out. And my wife's, my family's in the waiting room, And hours and hours and hours and hours of surgery later, I uh there was a decision made during the surgery process to leave some of the tumor inside of me. So they cut
Mhm.
out a ton. I have a picture of it. It's horrific to look at, but I was like, give me that picture. I want to see this thing.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of my guts in there. And they made a decision not to cut my mesenteric artery and leave a little bit of tumor, which, on one side you're like, zero, you want zero margins. Like, everyone knows, right?
Yeah.
Cancer, you want zero margins.
Mhm.
That's the goal always. And then, but man, life with a cut mesentery would have been terrible.
Yeah.
I would have had a colostomy bag for the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Um, I don't even want to think about where my life would have gone post that. And to wake up after surgery, knowing like I had no idea. That was not even on the radar of
Mhm.
things that could happen when I went to sleep, that I could wake up in that boat. I was just, let's have surgery, let's get this thing out of me. So it was twofold. I woke up and I found out like they made this decision, but I also woke up, probably a day later and found out they didn't get it all out.
Mhm.
And I was frustrated and mad.
Mhm.
It,
Yeah.
so
And
yeah,
yeah, and you had every right to be. I mean, I think you really said it, gosh, just so beautifully of like you go in with these hopes and expectations. And then the reality is also that there's so much unknown. And again, I think that resonates with so many patients that we hear from at the DTRF of you're going in not knowing what they could find, not knowing how locally aggressive desmoid tumors are, what they're wrapped around, how they are affecting internal organs. And I think that again, just what we hear and what we know about clear margins and phrases that are thrown around like that. But the medical team, like you mentioned, you were at an incredible center and surrounded by the best of the best as far as who was performing the surgery and who was taking care of you. That they were trying to make the very best decisions along with your family for your quality of life and future
yeah,
of your family. And it is an insurmountable decision
yeah.
that, uh,
Because on one hand, you're like, okay, I'm going to leave this thing in here. So like
mhm,
the oncologist and the doctor mid surgery made a choice, right? Without the full biopsy where they take the whole thing out and set it on. He said,
mhm,
this is what it is. Okay, so
mhm,
we're going to leave it. We're going to leave this little bit in there. We're not going to cut the artery, and we're going to treat it with, at that point it was Nexavar or sorafenib.
mhm,
That I knew. So it's like two-sided. It's like, man, I never knew. I didn't go into surgery thinking that we were gonna have surgery and then we were gonna start treatment. Like it was
mhm,
surgery and done. Um, to think like we came out of surgery and it's not done.
mhm,
And to be told like for the rest of your life you're going to have to take these pills,
mhm.
which was
Huge shock.
next step of the journey as we
Yeah.
now venture into life on Nexavar.
Absolutely. And I just want to take a minute to let everybody know that might have joined later. We're talking more about Jason's desmoid tumor story and specifically his treatment. The DTRF does not endorse any specific medical therapy, but we want you to make sure that you remember too that the desmoid tumor journey is very vast and varied, and no one treatment or one protocol is right for every patient. I do want to circle back with Jason as well about something he mentioned about access to care. And if you need help finding a physician, please visit our Find the Physician page at dtrf.org. Jason is located in St. Louis and had a fantastic center, a very capable medical team, very close by. But if you need help finding a sarcoma specialist near you, please head over to that page. I think that, as well as this team that you've mentioned, and the oncologist, and you mentioned a surgeon, were you, I'm assuming based on what we said so far, that you were seen by a multidisciplinary team, that you have been in contact. Can you kind of tell me a little bit more about who you have seen during your treatment, progression and even now?
Man, it's more doctors than I can probably name in off the top of my head, because it's like the fallout of, the medicines, the surgeries, it turned into like, oh, now you need to get your gallbladder taken out. Complications with, shortened bowel syndrome and all these other things. So you start seeing, you have an upper GIs and lower GIs, and obviously you have your normal surgeon and your oncologist, but just, as you whether it was is dealing with pain, back and forth in and out of the hospital with nurses and urgent cares, like at the
Mhm.
hospital, um, rheumatologists to deal with, just like, for some reason it's like I had this surgery and then all of a sudden I get diagnosed with celiac, and I'm like, I don't have celiac. I never had celiac in my whole life. How do I have this now that you cut
Mhm.
out half my guts? So it was like all these little things, um, became, a part of my life, and I probably spent, a month in the hospital post surgery with ongoing complications.
Mhm.
So it's but the initial, that communication between the surgeon and the oncologist, to make sure that I literally remember, my surgeon, um, like basically coming down and pulling an internist at the hospital off of me and being like, just give this guy a break. Like,
Mhm.
we're not draining anything, we're not doing anything else. Like, he just needs a break. So, um, having one of the things that I always tell people, through this journey is like, whether it's you or if you can't do it yourself, make sure somebody's there with you that is looking out for you. There is, these hospitals that do these surgeries and have these specialists. They're huge hospitals. There's residents, there's fellows, there's, most are teaching hospitals. Like, not everybody can, they're moving so fast they can't always catch up with the notes. Like, they don't always have perfect communication. And so, before you ever let somebody do something to you, you have to make sure that either you, if you're capable, or somebody else if you're not, because you're either out of it, on drugs, whatever you got to do, depending on where your situation is.
Mhm.
Like, somebody needs to make sure that before somebody does something to you or gives something to you or makes a decision on your behalf, that they're bringing somebody up to speed on all the things that have been done, the tests that were done before, the
Mhm.
things other people said. Because you can very quickly turn into like what feels like a lab mouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, gosh, it's so important. The advocacy piece of being able to advocate for yourself, but you're exactly right, of having that support system, that one person, that multiple people that can step in, and really have whatever you have, whether it's notes. I would love to hear if it's your wife or you or your, how are you keeping track, over the years, hopping from doctor to doctor? Do you have any tips for anybody of how to manage their care?
I mean, in the beginning, it was like journals, and we were documenting everything. And with
Mhm.
smartphones these days, you have note systems, and you can share things and share notes back and forth. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, it's probably easier today even than it was 8 years ago.
Mhm.
But that's like, it's just really important that there's, a system in place where, even just like the notes app on your iPhone, where two people can see the same things, and you're
Mhm.
you're you're diligent about what is happening, and the process, and the things that are being shared and asked of you. And I think that goes beyond just this. Like, I mean, as we take care of our parents and elders and all these
Mhm.
other things, like, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
you got to be an advocate. They said it perfectly. For
Mhm.
yourself and for the people you care about.
Absolutely, and it is an exhausting role to play for yourself and for other people. That caring in that diligent of a way that makes sure things don't get slipped through the cracks. Like you said, in every medical system, no matter how hard they try, and how well-meaning they are. It's just so important. And I think you've kind of mentioned a little bit of where you're at now, and on medication. Um, where are you at in your desmoid tumor journey now? We kind of hit on
Yeah.
diagnosis and a little bit of your treatment, but give us an update now.
Yeah, it's I spent shortly after surgery, as I, got a little bit recovered, we started, the full dose of sorafenib, which I think was 4 pills, like 800 milligrams. And man, it was tough. It was, I remember looking at my wife a lot saying like, I'm not sure I can do this. Like, this is terrible. And, we, have scans every quarter, still do, always did, and from the very beginning. And we over a period of time of call it 6 to 9 to 12 months, we were like, well, there's no growth. It's the same. It's stable, right? We're watching the tumors that are in there.
Mhm.
Let's cut the dose in half. Like, you're clearly struggling. I mean, I couldn't stay out of the hospital. I got my, gallbladder had to get removed. I remember, anyone who has kids, like, you live the first, like, weeks of life, like, with every light off in the house, it feels like, because you're just trying not to wake the baby. And I went to work, and this guy at my work said, "Hey man, your eyes are yellow." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, they are." And uh I, checked myself in. I was like in liver failure. I mean, it was the medicine just took a dramatic toll on my body. While it was helping one thing, it was not doing well on the other. And you could see it in my face. I actually just threw away my driver's license that I got, like back then. And I was like, man, I never want to see that picture again. I'd go through TSA and people would say like, don't ever let somebody take a picture of you like that again. And I'm like, wow, you probably feel really good,
Yeah.
saying something like that. So, but that's the, that's the reality, and that's how I felt, and that's how I looked. And so we did, from 4 to 2 pills. And then, it was, the symptoms were a little bit better, from or the reactions to the medicine. And we proceeded on that medicine, all the way, through, my second child, which we had, tried every, route to have a baby. And, before, getting on the medicine, post surgery, to try to make sure we can still have a family.
Mhm.
And that works. So we ended up, having a baby, which probably wasn't, led to more doctor's appointments, let's just say, as we, probably shouldn't have had a baby while taking Nexavar. um and so my third child, which, she is now 2, um we went to Dr. Vantine and said, hey, like, I'd like to plan on having this child now. Could we, what do we do? And he was like, let's take you off the medicine. So this was, about 3 years ago. Now he said, let's do like January of, 3 years ago. And he
Mhm.
said, let's take you off. And we have, so many advancements since this started. There's no longer just one drug because of the things that DTRF is doing, and the research and Springworks and all these other people. And the biggest fear with taking you off of a drug that works is that when you go back to taking it, it's not going to work anymore. And there wasn't a lot of history, right, of taking people off to have babies and do, like, go on with your life. So just tons of fear in it. Well, today's a lot different than it was 8 years ago. And the advancements in the pharmaceuticals and the medicines, spearheaded heavily by DTRF, um, and the partnerships you guys have with different companies, it's a game changer for, living with this disease. I know it's not the end goal to get we need a cure. We need to like punch this thing over the line. Like we're not in the pharmaceutical business, but like in the interim, it provides options. And so, long story short, he said, get off the drugs, do your thing, and like we'll go back on it when when you're done. And so I had my little baby Grace. We came to him and said, "Hey, we're having this baby. This is great news." And he said, "Hey, based on these new drugs that have now been created, I feel good about you not going back on the medicine. And because if I put you back on this medicine and it doesn't work, we have something else that's like equally effective that I could put you on. And I'm confident that like you won't be without a medicine in case this thing flares up." And he uses words like game over, which are scary, right? Because of where it is.
Mhm.
Um, but so long story short is I haven't taken any medicine in almost 3 years, and I still do quarterly scans.
Mhm.
Knock on wood, we're stable still,
Mhm.
which is super awesome. But it's also every time you go in, because you're not on it, every
Mhm.
time you go in and get a scan, you know that at some point, or you assume you're going to get the news that it's coming back and you gotta get back on the medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been through so much in the last 7.5 years, almost 8 when you were diagnosed, and anyone that's hopped on recently, I just want to remind everybody to feel free to drop Jason comments in the chat or any questions. We're gonna have a little Q&A at the end of the live here, so you can ask some of your questions. Remember again that the DTRF doesn't endorse any particular medical therapy. Every bit of the desmoid tumor journey is vast and varied, and what may work for one person may not work for another. But we hope that in listening to some of Jason's story today, that you take what resonates with you. And one of the things that he's mentioned, along with the details he shared tonight, is the support system he has. So, Jason, I would love to hear about how in the midst of continuing to have scans, how do you how do you take care of your mental health, and what's your support system like?
Good question. I mean, I have a big job. I work. It's like you make two choices, like in life, I think, and that's like you want to. Do you want to let this be your story? Or do you want to let it be part of your story? And so a lot of it's just like I know that doesn't work for everybody. Like a lot of people think about the way I handled this disease and they think I'm insane that like I didn't go on leave of absences. Like I find, normal being a distraction to this stuff. And so it's my most mental health at my best moments is just like focus on my kids, focus on my wife, focus on my friends, focus on the things that are fun that I can do and all this stuff. And at my lowest moments, you gotta have people that push up
Mhm.
and hug you when you need to, and have those people that you can lean into as support systems, because there have been, even for somebody like me who says like, "Oh, I don't need any of that." Like I've had some really low moments, and to my brothers and my wife and my kids and my parents and coworkers and friends,
Mhm.
um, they see me at bad moments, and they know when they need to lean in. But look, like I remember the first thing we did with DTRF was go to Philadelphia in the run for the cure in Philadelphia, and then the patient meeting, and like that helps too,
Mhm.
right? Like surrounding yourself with other people who have done it, some of which are like are thriving and some people are struggling, and it's like moments right within the whole thing like of how people are doing. So I've created like friendships from that, and I've created, I've seen things, and like it's there are some, like, I didn't fully, even while going through this, understand the life altering, changes that happen because of this disease. Like, I didn't know that,
Mhm.
like, many of those patients at that meeting had lost limbs, um, were disfigured, were like, you probably can't do the same things that they were doing prior to this disease. And my heart goes out to them, because I know, like, some people believe that the mesentery desmoid is like the most dangerous. It's,
Mhm.
it could be game over, as Dr. Valentine says. But on the other side, I my heart goes out to, like, the people who, have other challenges, and whether it's amputees, and Kevin Riley, the guy that played for the Eagles, that
Mhm.
spoke. And I remember him saying, like, we gotta punch this thing over the line. um and I'm committed to doing so.
Yes, you certainly are, and we're going to talk about in a minute how committed you are, and how again just how steadfast your support for the DTRF has been for years now. But I think you just mentioned one of the things we have coming up is Together We Will, and the patient meeting. The annual patient meeting is held at that weekend every year. Jason mentioned he went to one in Philadelphia where we used to hold the weekend, and this year we're in Chicago from September 12th to the 13th. So if you're able to join us in person, we would love to see you there. We have so many just incredibly intentional moments created for patients and caregivers to spend time together, to connect with our team, but also connect with clinicians and researchers that are there, and are experts in the field. So please join us if you can. And like Jason said, building that support system out, that you mentioned just in your local community, but your family, your friends, it makes a huge difference on the high moments and the low ones too. And I think you just highlighting that, the DTRF is hosting that weekend again, and we're so thankful that we get to do it every year. It's one of the greatest moments our team has, is to be in person with everyone. And I just, again, just feeling this kind of overwhelming love that you have for our foundation. And I'm lucky enough to get to work here every day, but you have, with the help of your wife and your family and your community, you learned about dtrf.org really early in your diagnosis. You said you found it on Google in the midst of so many unknowns, and then fast forward to after you were diagnosed, you started your own do-it-yourself golf tournament, called Swing for a Cure. And it's held around September, October each year. And for the past 6 years, it's raised over $150,000 for DTRF and desmoid tumor research, and everything that we get to do within this foundation for the patient and caregiver community. So I want to thank you, and I really want people to hear, how did you get this idea? Where did it start? And why, during the midst of so many unknowns and so many struggles with your treatment plan and everything you went through, why do a fundraiser on top of everything?
Man, it's a great question, and appreciate the plug for the event, October 6th this year.
Mhm.
We should have a sold out crowd again. It's already filling up quickly. And everyone's, welcome if you can make it in town, and we, donations and all the things that come with it. So, we have incredible sponsors that are all local, right? Like, it's restaurants, it's friends, it's like, my wife just coined the phrase early, which is like, come for the cure, stay for the fun.
Mhm.
She makes sure that it's a lot of fun. And so it's a celebration at the end of the day, where we have a party that's a golf event, and everyone pays to come to it. So they pay their own way to the party, and then the all the money that's raised, like, goes to the foundation, and people chip in to try to help us raise money. So it's we enjoy it, for number one. And I think it's if you find something you really love, which I like golf and I like being around my friends and I like having parties, and so if you like all that kind of stuff and you can raise money on top of it and people get excited about it and they show up every year even when it's raining and it's terrible weather, it's
Mhm.
so hot here in St. Louis, which is why it keeps moving from September to October because we're running away from the heat.
Mhm.
um it's fun, right? But your question is like, why did you do this? And like,
Mhm.
um early on, I think it was, I just, another vivid memory of me looking at my wife in the face and basically saying, like, in the hospital, and saying, and I think it was probably like admission number 3 or 4, like somewhere where I was ready to give up. And I said, hey, if I ever get out of here, like, we're gonna do something. And we're gonna help find a cure. We're gonna help make it better for other people. Like, we are going to do something to, be bigger than ourselves. And naturally it was a golf tournament because that's what we enjoyed doing.
Mhm.
But I will never stop doing it until we have a cure, because I said I wouldn't.
Mhm.
And I've been very fortunate to, be off this medicine for 3 years. And the last thing I want to do is get back on that medicine and get back in the hospital. So I'm not going to stop doing it until there's a cure, because I'm scared.
Mhm. Thank you so much, Jason. I mean, I thank you for your vulnerability, first of all. To be here, to be with us, we get to work with you. You're part of our DTRF board of directors, and you came on this year. But the passion and the empathy that you have, and just being able to share that tonight, and for forever in our DTRF video library, this live will exist as well to people for people to hear that message, that you won't stop until there's a cure, and the DTRF won't stop until there's a cure. I think that this incredible event that you guys have built out each year, again, this is the 7th year, and I think you hit the nail on the head, with your why. But I know that sometimes people are nervous to start an event, or like, where do I start?
Yeah.
They could want to have the fun, they could want to bring people together, but they're nervous of, like, how is this going to happen? Do you have any tips when it comes to just taking that next step to
Yeah.
fundraise?
Well, I think I would say a couple things. Number one is, like, don't underestimate your little impact, because until I got on the board and I realized like how big of an impact the Swing for the Cure was, I I underestimated how big of an impact it was. And so, while, like, maybe your event only raises $1,000 or a few $1,000, like, don't think your event doesn't matter. This isn't Parkinson's or breast cancer or leukemia. This We don't have Dick Vitale or Lance Armstrong or all these other people, right? Like, we're a small niche organization. And like, that's the number one thing that opened my eyes as a board member, and that I think everyone needs to know is, like, don't think your event has to be huge. Like, your small event that raises some money, it helps.
Matters.
And so do something. If you can do something, don't think it has to be huge. Number one. Number two is, um, I would focus all of your time and effort on bringing people together. If you choose to do an event, your time and effort should be on focused on bringing people together, and then ask DTRF to help you with the logistics. Meaning, like, you guys do all the website stuff for me.
Mhm.
You create the website, you open it up so people can go on and buy tickets or donate or do all the stuff. Like, my entire function running the golf tournament is getting people to donate things, getting people to register. I'm a hype man, like, for the golf tournament, trying to drive participation from sponsors, from people, from telling people how much fun they're going to have. My wife takes care of a lot of the daytime events, like meaning like the registration and the
Mhm.
handing out 50-50 tickets, and people love it. So ask for help, number one, with like your operations of it. But focus your time and effort on being who you are, and just ask people to come along with you.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. I think, everybody has different gifts and abilities, and just getting started sometimes is the hardest part. And we're right in the middle of RFA virtual fundraising season that's running for answers. Jason mentioned it earlier. In Philadelphia, we used to have an in person run. Last year, we transitioned to a walk in Houston. But this year, we're fully virtual and making it as easy as possible for you to jump on, launch your fundraising page. And like Jason said, every single dollar matters. So it doesn't matter how much you raise, it's that you get started and you start sharing it with your networks the best you can. And then you never know where it's going to go, where you could end up next year wanting to host an event or having another idea or having more people jump on board to help support you. We hear it time and time again, too, that from patients and caregivers of how much it means to them. And they never knew how much it would mean to them to be in person with the people that support them, the community that supports them, and they're able to share a little bit about what desmoid tumors are. Like you said, we are a rare disease. We're a rare disease foundation, and any help that we can get is going to make a massive impact. So you never know where that could lead. So I just encourage everybody out there, to listen to Jason, to feel that momentum of like you said, he's a hype man, of knowing that the feeling that he's gotten from his event for now 6 years going on 7 is something that we are so incredibly appreciative as a foundation. But so many patients and caregivers that are able to see and lead, come behind you in it from your example is such a huge deal. I think, we're going to take some questions in a minute from anybody watching. Feel free to add some comments, some questions. I think I got one just a minute ago that Randy asked, would you be willing to do a golf fundraiser out of state? We have a cute little golfing town that I believe would participate. Do you think you could market it somewhere else and host somewhere else too?
uh I mean, I'd be open to the idea. Where's the town? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, you never know.
Hit me up on
Yeah.
Facebook or something like that. I mean, I would be happy to help anywhere. We remember, like, it was a few years ago, they did that event up in New York at the Tuxedo Club, which was fantastic. And I came and brought some friends, and we'd love to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Yeah. And like Jason mentioned too, our development director, Debbie Nathan, is also available for help and support. And the whole team behind the scenes of your do it yourself event is here to support you in any way we can, from the actual, registration page to other kind of promotional materials that you can have at your event. So please know that we're here to support you throughout that process. We're going to take a look at a few more questions. Um, and let's see. Do you ever get tired, Jason, of explaining what a desmoid tumor is?
Uh, no. Probably would be my first answer, because that's the whole point, right? The whole point of what we're doing is trying to educate people. Look, like, if somebody's some negative person, or like the TSA guy that commented on my driver's license, I'd probably get sick and tired of explaining it to him. But if somebody's genuinely curious, or somebody wants to rally on your bandwagon, like, if you're not telling somebody about it, that person doesn't know what it is. And so, that's the only way we're going to keep getting people to rally behind this cause, is if we keep telling people about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's so much there's so many misunderstandings about what a desmoid is. And I think, this person's question is so valid, and your response is so valid, as if we don't encourage or continue to encourage people to share what they are and how they're classified, we're not going to get that awareness piece out. But I know I can relate to this question from other stories that I've heard of where you just grow weary of people not understanding what a desmoid is. But do you ever, another question would be, do you ever feel anger around, you mentioned, after surgery, them not getting all of the tumor, making the choice to leave part of your tumor in your mesentery. Do you ever feel angry about your desmoid tumor?
Yeah. Um, I had a lot of anger about that situation.
Yeah.
Some of it was like I didn't know for days after that that's what happened. I didn't know for days after that I still had a tumor because I was in really bad shape, like just recovering. And my family knew, the doctors knew, but no one wanted to tell me. So I was mad, very mad. Um, so yes, I'm very glad that they didn't cut it in hindsight. Um, I wish. It's like I choose very different words than mad most of the time because like mad doesn't get me very far, but I wish that I would have got diagnosed with desmoid tumors today instead of 8 years ago because I think that my treatment might have been different and maybe I would have never even had surgery. And
Mhm.
maybe the drugs that are available today would have been the first course of action instead of like the second. And so, I'm super bullish about the future of people that have desmoid tumors. Like I think that every day that the Desmoid Tumor Foundation keeps moving forward and doing what they're doing, the outcomes of patients are going to be improved because, there's awareness and then there's options. And so I probably, instead of getting mad about, I'm mad that I got diagnosed with it. I'm mad that I haven't. I'm mad that I didn't win the lottery. Instead, I won the lottery of desmoid tumors because it's basically like the same odds. Like I
Mhm.
wish I would have won the lottery. That would have been a lot more fun.
Mhm.
But I'm glad that that I had the treatment that I did, and I'm very bullish about the people who unfortunately get this disease in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we're going to have to wrap up here soon, but I have just a couple more questions from people in the chat and some things that we want to wrap up with. What is one piece of advice you would give to a newly diagnosed patient?
Mm. Make sure you see a person who has treated somebody with desmoid tumors first and slow down before you go fast. Like make sure you can't undo surgery. So if you can like just explore every other option first, get second opinions, like make sure it's the right course of action for you before you do something because it's you can't undo a surgery.
Absolutely. I think, you said it. If anyone missed it earlier too, Jason talked about just how important it is to access, a sarcoma specialist if you possibly can, but also a multidisciplinary team that can, properly diagnose a desmoid tumor, but also move through your treatment options with you. But absolutely, a second opinion, an ability for you to advocate for yourself, for someone else to advocate on your behalf if you can't for some reason, is just so incredibly important. And I think you've just detailed that so wonderfully in this live event. The last question I would love to know is just, what are your top three things that you've learned about yourself during this, past 7.5, almost 8 years?
Um, Probably realized how much people care about me. Um, like people genuinely care, and that's probably number one. I realized that uh, I can I can pretty much do anything. Like I'm super resilient. Like I'm stronger because of this. And number three is like I realized like that, not everything in life is about work and success and like that kind of stuff.
Mm.
There's something bigger than than that in this world. And if you can, join a call like this or support somebody else or help somebody through a difficult situation, um, there's great joy in that.
Absolutely. Well, we're gonna wrap up now, but I can't thank you enough for being here, Jason, and sharing your story, sharing so many pieces of advice, of insights, and again for just the ability for you to be vulnerable with the DTRF community. I loved getting to spend time with you today, and I can't wait to keep in touch with you in the coming months as you prepare for Swing for a Cure in October. So we're so
And
excited about that. Thank you so much, Jason.
hope to see everybody in Chicago as well.
Yes, absolutely. All righty. Say bye to Jason and I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye. All right, everyone. That was such an amazing conversation with Jason. Again, just want to thank everybody that was able to tune in live. But don't forget that as we continue our work in 2025, we want to be sure you don't miss a beat when it comes to desmoid tumor news and DTRF updates. Please be sure to subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't already done so and follow us on all our social media channels. Thank you so much for tuning in today in honor of Sarcoma Awareness Month. And don't forget to share this recording, which will be out next week, and others in our extensive video library at dtrf.org to continue spreading desmoid tumor awareness all year long.